communication media for the power system. The transmission power line carrier, PLCC. So power line carrier communication is very advantageous. You can just see economical because you are not installing any special transmission or a data communicating line. Existing transmission sections only you are using. It is suitable for station to station communication only. This is one of the scope where it is applicable. End of the transmission line opening and closing up of the transmission line end to end. When you want to communicate with the device, this PLCC power line carrier communication becomes a suitable mechanism to communicate. So it is station to station communication. So equipment is installed in utility owned area. At the end of the transmission line and beginning of the transmission line, if I install this LC circuit, tune the LC circuit and voice over the transmission line, we can mix, and other side you can listen those things after demodulation. So this is how the power line carrier communication making use of the infrastructure which is already a transmission grid, mixing the particular carrier frequency signals on that and extracting it on the other side, I can listen to the requirement. The disadvantage of this power line carrier communication is limited distance of coverage. This is the challenging. Hence the name is station to station communication only. So you cannot use in kilometers and to hundreds of kilometer length. That is a challenge. Low bandwidth. You cannot transmit lot of data on it. Usually used for voice transmission. Like your walkie-talkie, how people use in the field. Similarly, from a station to the next connected switched station, it is tuned and listening to that station, which is used to communicate for the information. So it is a low bandwidth. Inherently, few channels available. You cannot have lot of frequencies in which channel 1, channel 2, people can use concurrently. It is not possible. So it is a limited usage of bandwidth, limited number of channels with which communication from the one end of the station to the other end of the station or other end of the transmission we can do it. This is exposed to public access. This is a challenge. The disadvantage is your information what you are exchanging is going through a public line, the transmission line. There could be a possibility to extract it from hackers. So this is how the exposed to public access is the nature of that. That is a disadvantage. In fact, this is a challenge to get the things, but this is technically possible to get the information out of that link which is going on. That is what the limitation and scope of the power line carrier communication we can get into. The next advanced version of this, which is useful, is for the long distance is microwave in a gigahertz scale. Cost effective, reliable, suitable for establishing backbone communication infrastructure, high channel capacity, high data rate. Here was a limitation. The bandwidth was very limited and we did not have a number of channels for different people to concurrently transmit their information to the different nodes. This was not possible. But here, microwave communication made it possible. With respect to that ability, it is a cost effective. Simply comparison, it is costlier. Cost effective because of the feature what it provides. Reliability, suitable for making it as a backbone communication for your entire system. Number of channels and the capacity with the high data exchange. This is possible. The disadvantage of it is line of sight clearance required. So there could be a small objection due to the coverage of height building or not clear in the transmission, shadowing, shift in lines like that. High maintenance cost because it is equipped with a lot of devices with a microwave, transmitter, receiver, and signal coupler. All those things are used in the communication mechanism, require high maintenance cost. Specialized test equipment are needed and skilled technicians are required. As it is said, microwave, you need to have a microwave bench communication mechanism, coupler, connector, signal conditioner. All those additional things need to be properly maintained, and operation is not by simple ordinary person. It should be a skilled fellow who is able to configure it and work for that. And signal feeding and multi-path propagation. This is a challenge. Signal feeding means signals getting diminished in their magnitude and particular strength. That is the signal feeding effect over a distance. and multi-path propagation. As signals are transponded from the transmitter to the area and to the other end it is being captured, there could be a possibility of transmit of data in a multifaceted direction. In all directions, may that data is useful, collected properly and processed from the receiving end, received properly and appropriateness of that matter here. That's a disadvantage over here. And from the radio communication, it is a mobile application, radio frequency RF, suitable for communication with the areas that are otherwise inaccessible. You can just see in a substation, you can imagine a hydro station from the tail race and to the top of the catchment area, generation station, somewhere you would like to communicate. So radio system, it's like a walkie-talkie like radio communication systems used over here to communicate from field of work to the field of control, where we can say independent of your present mobile communication, what we have, cellular, mobile, what we have, this was popular radio system and it is very much useful in our system operation control from the switchyard, substation to the control room you want to communicate, or on the field to the station you want to communicate. Radio system over a specific range you can use it. There could be an interference of noise, adjacent channels interference, changes in channel speed, and it may be overall could also get affected, and switching during the data transfer would cause a problem, and power is a limitation. It requires a lot of power and recharging, charging of batteries, and somehow it is a lack of security, because the people can attack the particular frequency band and trap your information and get to know and induce the data into your system to make your system affected like that. This is how the walkie-talkie like concept you can imagine here, and very useful for the maintenance wing or a troop of people communicating from one operating point to another. The other advanced system is satellite communication. This is how you can imagine in a power station where it is a generating area, where it is a load center, maybe the radio system or transmission mechanism using PLCC or other PSTN switched telephone lines, nothing, they may not be suitable, not possible to even lay, you can just imagine. So in the remote area where resource is, definitely point to point satellite kind of imagination we can see. So it is covering wide area, suitable to communicate with inaccessible area, where I was speaking about very limited scope to reach the particular locality, but you would like to communicate for its appropriate operation and requirement. Hence it is useful and cost independent of distance. So it doesn't matter how long it is being, but the cost is very huge during the investment, and it is definitely not connected to the distance, and low error rate. Highly precise compared to the other systems, but satellite system is somehow becoming very popular. You can just imagine, for this an example, an ATM from the bank. Just see your currency or money from your remote particular end with the satellite communication established with its connected office. Your transactions are being processed, and there will be a distance of required money for you. Like that, this satellite kind of system in a power system, if we imagine, that system is able to transmit its requirement to the master unit, and the master unit can communicate to the end device for its exchange of information and control. This is how wide area controlling is possible, and it can handle for a longer distance and other kind of things. Presently, it's also in practice. Total dependency to remote location. But that's a disadvantage. I cannot simply use this highly costlier setup to every location where it is. Usually limited to remote area where even reaching to the destination itself is a complicated. That's how in that area it is limited, and less control over the transmission, because it is already a satellite and it is communicating to the geosphere and then continual leasing cost. So it is again the bandwidth which you are going to share for a particular transmission of this data and all. and these are the other associated warning for that, but costlier. Third spectrum radio, affordable solution using unlicensed link. So which I was speaking about radio system earlier. Here is a small deviation from that. Here is an permitted. You are permitted to access to a range below the licensed version. So like I can just say, if you are using a walkie-talkie like a communication system, the frequency what you are using, radio frequency, RF communication, I am speaking particularly. So it must be in wireless communication authorities must certify certain frequency and above if you are using, because that particular frequency can affect security system and other associated with which they are dedicated. The frequency below that, you can definitely be used and it is free to use. In that way, affordable solution using unlicensed services, where you are not supposed to get authority sanctioned, authorized for usage of this at certain frequency below which you can utilize it. Yet to be examined to satisfy reliance. It is not just practically utilized to extent, but it is just a scope for investment, because it is free and it is to be tested to the fullest extent of it. So I have here PLCC, microwave, radio system, satellite system, and in the radio system only free band which is below the licensing authority. These are the one useful communication channels for the particular transmission for the power system to operate. Then we have leased phone. So effective if solid link is required to site served by telephone service. I can imagine a far away remote area where telephone connectivity is possible rather than other kind of bus transport services. It's an expensive in longer term, not good solution for a multi-channel application. So this can you can say internet services, how earlier people used to get, that kind of communication you can think of. So it is using the telephone line only, using the lead the telephone line for your connected end-to-end device. Suppose it may be a company having its corporate office somewhere at a city and having its another client or service center over the distance and having its software of billing, software of purchase, trading are connected to end, and the billing occur from one end to another end to first. Like that, they have a dedicated lines being shared to them so that they can access their software privately with a protected mode. Nothing but a billing sitting in the far away from the head office, or taking the information of the branch sitting in the head office. Like that, dedicated lead line, end-to-end connectivity is used by public service provision. It's called telephone services. This is also another way, but there is a problem because there could be a breakdown in the service provision. That breakdown could definitely cause your business to get hampered like that. So when I use such things for highly sensitive power system, it really is not a good solution. So if the telephone line broken or telephone line service is broken, your service control in the power system gets highly affected. Hence it is not desirable, but there is a scope for communication that could happen in the power system. Let's see the fiber optic communication. So as I was having the physical line, wireless line, another mode of copper or other kind of mode of connectivity, fiber optic is another mode of optical mode of communication of data from end to end, which is cost effective, high bandwidth, high data transmission rate, and this is an advantage immune to electromagnetic interferences. This is the popularity what this particular fiber optic is having. Higher bandwidth, cost is higher, but its feature when I say it's a cost effective and high data transmission and being highly immune to electromagnetic interferences. Other telephone lines or satellite or any other communications are really affected by electromagnetic switching. Those switchings will have an interference on the communication lines. Communication lines are susceptible to such interfaces. Those interferences will definitely cause wrong data to propagate to the end devices. There could be an erroneous communication or erroneous data which could lead to some wrong judgments like that. Already implemented in telecommunication. SCADA, video communication transmission, data exchange, voice trust, etc. This has proved best in the current trend for high bandwidth and high data transfer rate in this area. That is what telecommunication, communication among the automation, video transmission, data, that you will see now. Nowadays, the 4G, what we are finding, this could be a best backbone for our required data rate. But when you see a disadvantages of which, expensive, test equipment also costlier, failure may be difficult to pinpoint, can be subject to breakage. This is the other side reality of it. Once there is a defectiveness in the system, troubleshooting it and getting it traced from the point to point become a challenge. This is a disadvantage, but initial investment is very high. It will expensive to trace it, to operate it also, cost-effective equipment need to be justified. Then another one thing what I have added here is, there are so many equipments in the power system mechanism. It may be a generator protection you would like to take up, differential protection you would like to take up, distance-based transmission line protection you would like to take, over or under voltage protection, overcurrent protection. These are the protecting mechanisms that one would interface in the reality to see to it that proper control on the power system is put on. Then how different manufacturers look this as an opportunity to develop their control on a generator protection, a General Electric, how they are using, what are the protocols they are practicing to work on a generator, differential protection, distance protection. These are the playing parties. General Electrics are working with different controllers for these things using RS-232, RS-485, IEC-650, Mod1-6b, DNP. So this is what I wanted to project here is, whatever we have discussed, the communication mechanism, communicating protocols, where they are used, who are using them, where they are applicable, that I wanted to cross connect so that you remember them in a very effective manner. So these are the different communicating mechanisms, communicating modes with standards where generator protection schemes are applied, differential protection schemes are applied, distance protection schemes are applied. And for over and under voltage and over current protection, G is also a player. So it's developing with the hardware and software, then with the standardized protocols and communication mechanisms. And ABB is also developing for this requirement. You can see. So RS-232 serial, RS-485 serial, point to point, IEC 101, 103, and local on network, and specified partial access, distributed network, Modbus, RTU. So many things are mentioned here. Specific to their product, they are using standardized protocol for which the communication should take place for a certain application like this. ABB is a big player presently in the global market. ABB's products are running very larger in extent and many more. Then another is SCL. So SCL, Modbus, TCP/IP, DNP. These are the areas where they are working upon to meet the requirements of protections as a requirement. Then Alstom. Alstom is another corporation. GEC Alstom is a venture in India. So this Alstom is also producing so many equipment for all the variety of protections, RS-232, RS-485, and Courier, K-bus, Modbus based protocols. They are practicing in their hardware, so that those devices are configured on the system to serve for a certain application with this language of communication. This sheet I wanted to present to you because you will come to know the importance of these protocols and standards which we have seen, how they become the communicating language for the hardware with the real device and to the software where it is being processed. They keep exchanging the information in the particular mode, particular manner, such that data is received, data is provided for the appropriate control of end devices from the dispatch. This is how this sheet really helps you to notice. So this I'll be sharing to you. Later, I